status message that actually interfered with my syntax I was typing, and that can be very annoying to a lot of us when we're typing in syntax, when we're going from one mode to another and back one level, and these status messages pop up and interfere with our syntax, especially if we have an interface going up and down. The technique in order to remove that issue, and you can see that because of that status message that interrupted my my syntax, I get a known command computer name. And remember, if we didn't do the no IP domain lookup, that would time out for about 5 minutes before we could get in there. But nonetheless, let's remove the status, actually remove the status message, but make the status message not interfere with our syntax that we're typing. In order to do so, we have to go under the line console 0 and type in this very useful command called login synchronous. Login synchronous will allow that status message, yes, to still appear, but not hamper our syntax that we're typing. And let's see if that actually take effect here. So I'm going to type in Control Z and go back into config T, and you notice that that status message that is saying configured from console by console did not interfere with me typing my command that I want to use here. The next one that we have on the list here, it says add exec timeout. Now I'll put a question mark there for that exec timeout. The exec timeout is very useful again in our production environment because, well, we should actually talk about what the exec timeout is. The exec timeout is the amount of time before the device reloads itself to the initial device screen without any user input. This is very useful, meaning that if there is no user activity on that device at the time, it would reload to the initial screen where basically the person would have to re-enter their credentials in order to access the device again in order to make changes. That is very useful in our production environment because let's just say that we're working on a router for a specific period of time and we just happen to leave to go on lunch or something, and we have important configurations on that router for our routing purposes and our probably TNS trusted network segment, and we don't want anybody to perform any malicious activity. Well, if there was no exec timeout, if there was no exec timeout, that session that we have with that router will be maintained indefinitely, meaning that anybody who wants to do any malicious activity can do so and basically mess up our configurations. So within the production environment, the exec timeout is a very useful command that we can invoke. However, if we're in our home lab, do we really need an exec timeout? I mean, it's only us who's working on this 3800 series router, and basically all we're doing is probably understanding some concepts and techniques, so it's really not necessary. But in order to get into the habit within your production environment, it's also a good idea to do it in your home lab. So let's get back to our test router here and invoke this exec timeout. Now there's a few different ways to place this exec timeout. One of the useful ones, or actually an important one, is under the line console 0. In order to perform this exec timeout command, we type in the keyword exec timeout followed by the timeout in minutes, meaning the amount of time in minutes before this session will time out. We're going to type in 30 minutes and we're going to hit space and a question mark, and we're going to type in 0 seconds. So basically, after 30 minutes of inactivity on this session here, notice that status message gave us back to our command prompt. After 30 minutes of inactivity, this session would be closed. The next one I have here is configure access to router. Well, you may be asking yourself, are we not accessing the router right now? Well, yes, we are. And in my setup I have here, we are accessing it via a term serve that is going to the console connection of this AHA-VTS router. But in our production environments, we may not be actually connecting to these devices via term serve. In some cases we may, but in some cases basically through a VTY connection, a telnet session using the IP address of specific interfaces and or loopback addresses. But we will configure all of the various type of accesses on this router. So the first one we're going to go into global configuration mode, and we're going to type in line con 0. We've seen this in the last few minutes on how to set up specific requirements. Going to line con 0, then we're going to type in the keyword login. Login tells the router that is waiting for a certain type of logging. In this case, we have two, either local or TACX. Being that we don't have a TACX server available that has our proper credentials, we're going to use the local keyword here. As you remember, we have created a local user account, local user credentials on the specific router. So we're going to use the login local syntax and hit enter. Then we'll also go into the VTY sessions. We have 4 of them here. And we're also going to do the same command there, login local. Matter of fact, let me also add in this keyword here, password. It's going to be important for the next statement I have down here for service password encryption. So let's just do that there under the line VTY, and let's get back into the line con 0 and also add password. Now, I'll explain to you what the password means in a second. Now I'm going to put both of them as Cisco. Now this password is used to actually gain access into this device if we use the telnet or console session. So let's exit out of there, and I'm just going to do a show run at the moment to see what we've configured here. Okay, so let's just go through all of this stuff here. Alright, let me just scroll back up quickly here. At the beginning here, we will see that I typed in, here we go, show run. Notice that we have our host name as Aha-Vts. And we're going to scroll down. Notice we have our enable secret password, right? Do you remember what it is? I believe it was my name, right? And here is the hash that the router using AES have determined to be the encrypted password for that name to be. We're going to scroll down here. We have a no IP domain lookup, and scroll down a little bit more. We should see our username. Here it is. Our username, Aline, password Aha-Vts. Notice something about that password? We'll get to that in a second. It's in clear text, so I can read that. We're going to scroll past all our interfaces that is not needed at the moment, and we're going down to the bottom here. We have our line console 0, our exact timeout to be 30 minutes, 0 seconds. We have our password is Cisco, also in clear text, and a login synchronous for those status messages, and the login local command. And also under the VTY telnet sessions, we have password Cisco and login local. Notice that those passwords are in clear text. That is okay in our home lab environment, but in a production network, that's not too keen to do, especially if we're trying to harden our systems. So the last basic housekeeping technique I have listed here is turn on service password encryption. By invoking this command here, you will encrypt all of the passwords that are in clear text within your running configurations. So let's type in service password encryption. Now before I hit an enter, let's scroll back up to my running configuration that I have here, and I want to point out something that we didn't take a look at, but we should have. Notice right here, or as soon as I type in the show run configurations, the first thing that showed up here was no service password encryption, meaning that the no form of the service password encryption will unencrypt all passwords. So let's hit enter and let that command take effect. And let's get out of this and go back into show run, and let's take a look at our running configurations now. Okay, notice, let's scroll back up a few here. Service password encryption has been invoked. You notice you don't see the no form. The enable secret is already encrypted, so it will not be encrypted again. Okay, have our no IP domain lookup. Look at our username and account now. Notice that the password that was in clear text is now encrypted in a form that is not comprehensible by neither myself or you, only to this device. Let's scroll to the bottom here and let's see if any other passwords has been encrypted.